The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Franks, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, for coming today. Madam Attorney General, you mentioned earlier that your first consideration in any case was to start with the statute. And I know there are a lot of questions already that's addressed this issue, but I want to read you 18 U.S.C. 1924, where it says, any federal official who, quote, becomes possessed of documents or materials containing classified information of the United States and knowingly removes such documents or materials without authority and with the intent to retain such documents or materials in an unauthorized location shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 1 year or both. Now, this statute doesn't require an intent to profit or to harm the United States or otherwise act in a manner disloyal to the United States. It simply requires intent to retain classified documents at an unauthorized location, something FBI Director Comey's own comments suggest was the case with Hillary Clinton's investigation. Can you walk us through your reasoning on your non-prosecution decision in the Clinton-based case based on this particular statute?
Congressman, with respect to the reasoning for my recommendation, as I have stated before, I had committed to and did accept the recommendations of the team working on this matter. And as I indicated in my opening statement, it would not be appropriate for me as Attorney General to go into that level of analysis. I believe the FBI Director has chosen to make his recommendations and analysis public in order to afford more clarity into that. But the team did review the relevant laws, the relevant facts that the investigation revealed. They relied solely on that and not on anything else in making that recommendation, which was unanimous to me.
Well, Madam Chair, Madam Attorney General, you know, the FBI doesn't give an opinion or decide if an individual will be prosecuted. You do, but many members already, I can see where this is going. They've far more capable members of this committee have summarily failed, as I just did, to get you to answer even the most reasonable and relevant question. And consequently, I'm going to simply capitulate to your prodigious dissimulation skills and suspend the remainder of my questions. Instead, I just want to remind all of us that in a republic like America, which is fundamentally predicated on the rule of law and the equality of us all under the rule of law, there are few things that break faith with America and the American people and undermine their trust in their government more than witnessing the highest law enforcement officer in the land blatantly ignoring the crystal clear meaning and equal protection and equal enforcement of the laws as they are written. And Madam Attorney General, I think such an abrogation of your official duties and responsibilities, not just a matter of what will be writ large in the annals of your own legacy, it's something rather that goes to the very heart of the rule of law in a republic that so many lying out in Arlington National Cemetery have died to keep. And I hope going forward, if there are other investigations into the false testimony given to the Congress by Mrs. Clinton, that will be at least part of your consideration. With that, I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Attorney General Lynch. Appreciate your being here. I cannot let the statement of my colleague go unrebutted. To say the death of 5 police officers just happened and that we on this side of the aisle think that's not important is an outrage. It is simply an outrage. I won't say that actually if my colleague had his way, then everybody would be as disarmed in around the country as they are in Chicago and in Washington, D.C., and we would be losing thousands more of precious black lives in America. But we're here in the wake of 5 police officers being killed, and that is a huge deal. And having spent much of my adult career working with law enforcement, it's a huge deal to me. And I know from the law enforcement officers I talk to, they want to make sure that others are not above the law. Now, Chairman Goodlatte had asked you about the recommendation, and you talked about the briefing team, and you said you saw no reason not to accept the recommendation of the team. How much time did you spend reading the recorded testimony of Hillary Clinton from that 3.5-hour interview?
Congressman, I'm not going to go into the particulars of my briefing, except to say that...
No, this is just your own personal work. Did you go through in detail all of the statements she made in that 3.5-hour interview?
Congressman, as I've indicated previously, my role that I had decided earlier was that I would be speaking and meeting with the team who had done that substantive in-depth work for over a year, that had worked on this matter, that had compared the facts and the evidence. Now, you said that several times, Attorney General, and I don't have enough time to have you keep repeating that 4 more times. But you, when Chairman Goodlatte asked you about the statute and whether it includes the term gross negligence, you made an improper statement. You said discussion of the statute would require discussion of the facts. That's not true. You know, from my years of judging on the bench, your comment that discussion of the statute would require discussion of the facts, when he asked you about an element that's contained in the statute, Attorney General, that really sounds like an answer somebody would give who hadn't read the statute and was looking for a dodge to avoid talking about a statute with which they're not familiar. You are aware, and this doesn't require any discussion of any facts whatsoever, but you are aware that in 18 U.S.C. 793F, gross negligence is an element of the offense, are you not? Congressman, I refer you to my statement that you just commented on with respect to
okay, well, if you're not going to answer the question, I'm afraid you may be reinforcing it.
The question to me was the meaning of a phrase.
Now, you said there was no basis not to
manner.
accept the recommendation of our team, but you've given no indication whatsoever that you did any independent reading of the evidence, of the statements. Was Hillary Clinton's statement even recorded?
Congressman, I'm not going to discuss the specifics of that. I believe the FBI has provided extraordinary clarity and insight into that.
Okay, well, if you're not going to answer the question, then let's move on. But I find it extraordinary that after a 3.5-hour interview, so quickly a recommendation is made. So there are inquiring minds that are very intelligent that have said, wow. It almost sounds like on that plane somebody said, look, if you just tell Hillary to come in, we're wrapping up, but we got to be able to say that we interviewed her. It won't be recorded, so she'll be good. It sounded like it was a check the box. You're familiar with Scooter Libby's case and Martha Stewart's case. I know it was well before you came to office, correct? You remember they were prosecuted for making a false statement when the FBI and the Justice Department couldn't make the case they started out. You remember that?
One in New York and I believe one here.
Right.
Here meaning
and so that's a pretty common instrument to be used. If someone makes a statement somewhere inconsistent in what they tell the FBI, that itself becomes a matter of prosecution. And I am shocked. I thought it would be weeks before an answer could be made, but it looks like to do a 3.5-hour interview, you haven't reviewed the facts, you reviewed the team recommendation, and I would just encourage you, Attorney General, your oath was not to follow the recommendation of some team. Your oath is your own responsibility to our Constitution and those that are working under you. My time's expired.